very much. I've just put my folder down onto this laptop, so I don't know if it's going to start pressing the buttons. I hope not. Yeah, I'm David Halford from BBC Worldwide. Worldwide is the commercial arm of the BBC. We exist purely to make money. We exploit the brand, the BBC brand, to make as much money as we possibly can from things like Teletubbies or Top Gear or Strictly Come Dancing. All of our profits go back into the BBC to supplement the licence fee and to help to pay for programmes. And our activities include publishing, toy licensing. We're the second biggest licensing business after Disney in the UK. We're the fourth biggest magazine publisher, and of course we're huge in selling TV programs around the world, so selling EastEnders to, I don't know, Spanish and beyond. Our environmental journey started about 15 years ago in the magazines business. As I say, we're the fourth biggest magazine business with titles like Radio Times and Top Gear and Gardener's World. And we use a lot of paper. We use about 50,000 tonnes of paper a year. And so we did an impact assessment back then, 15 years ago, to see what the impact of that manufacturing side of the business was. And the answer came back that the biggest impact by far was the paper that we use, and specifically the source of that paper, and the forests that it comes from. So we spent the last 15 years working on forest certification and forestry management, and now most of our magazines are printed on FSC certified paper. But then a couple of years ago we said, right, okay, we've done all this work on magazines, which is great. What's the bigger picture? And of course we started looking at carbon. Carbon hadn't, well, I was going to say carbon hadn't been invented 15 years ago. It probably had, but no one was really talking about it in environmental terms, certainly not in our kind of circles. So we came up with a new environment strategy with 5 main target areas, which are environmental management, and for that we are pursuing the 14001 route, and very interesting it is too. It's actually proven to be quite fun and quite useful to us. A lot of work. So environmental management, materials, so like the paper, the plastics that we use for the toys and so on. The energy, so that's where carbon comes into it. Water and waste. And in terms of the carbon footprinting, we've actually split our business into 2 main areas. The first area being the premises where we work around the world and business travel. So that's one lump, and the other lump is our products and services. And we decided to tackle we decided to footprint the easy one first, and the easy one was the premises and business travel. And it really is very easy, and there's no excuse in my mind to spend very long at all on this. And in fact, I've got the calculating tool that we used to do that footprint, and sorry, that's the front of the fag pack. It's on the back of the fag pack, because that's basically how we did our carbon footprint for premises and business travel. We just got some energy data, and we looked up on the internet, and we got our air miles for the from the travel bureau that we use, and we did a quick calculation on the back of the fag packet. Admittedly, we did get in an environmental consultant expert to come and do some validation, but actually they agreed with pretty much what we'd done. And so that exercise took a couple of weeks. We then moved on to what we think is actually by far the most important thing to do in this whenever talking about carbon, and that is looking for ways to reduce the footprint. So we split that into, say, buildings and travel. Buildings, we were fairly fortunate because we've moved very recently into a very nice, environmentally efficient building. It's got the BREEAM Excellent rating, if that means anything to anyone. It's the highest rating for building design, and in fact for us construction as well. So we've got gadgets on the building, like we've got fins on the outside that filter out the sun in the summer and allow it in the winter to help reduce the cooling and the heating requirements. We've got passive cooling and heating, which is I'm told, very efficient. We've got lighting settings that dim in the bright sunlight automatically, and the whole building turns itself off out of hours. So we've actually got quite a few things like that which we've just got. They're built in, and we're very grateful for those. But then what about the staff behaviour within the building? Well, the approach that we've taken, it's kind of slightly unusual perhaps. We've decided not to concentrate too much on environmental champions. We have got environmental champs, we've got 50 of them in the company, but we're not seeing our environmental projects as being champs projects. What we're saying is this is the way we do business. So we're actually imposing a lot of the guidelines, a lot of the changes on our staff. So we went completely binless. We said no litter bins at all, and by doing that, we've reduced our waste dramatically, and we've actually now hit our target of being zero waste to landfill by using waste to energy plants as well. And other things we've done in the building is we got rid of all disposable cups. We just said they're not allowed anymore. You have to use China cups. We saved 1 million cups a year by doing that. And we have a rainwater harvesting system. That's again part of the building, but we installed dual flush toilets throughout as well to further bring down the water usage. We save 4 million litres a year by using those two devices. Laptops and PCs and monitors and Macs and so on, they've all been set to automatically shut down after 15 minutes. With a push of a mouse, they'll come back up to life. But we're taking away, we're not just relying on users to do good behaviour, we're using technology to help them with that as well. And then travel. Travel for us accounted for half of the operations footprint, which is about typical for companies of our size. We introduced a 10-point travel policy, and our 10-point travel policy, it bans all UK flights, so no one in our company, including the chief exec, is allowed to fly in the UK. We put a restriction on European flights, so no one's allowed to use the aeroplane to fly to close Europe destinations if in fact they can use Eurostar and other connecting trains. And there's a very specific limit. They can only use the train if it's. They can only use the plane if it's going to add an extra 4 hours onto the journey, which actually means most of the time you're using the train. For long-haul travel, which accounts for 93% of our footprint, everyone before they fly as long-haul has to have the chief exec sign off on each and every time, and they have to give a declaration as to why they can't use video conferencing instead of flying long-haul. That cut our business travel footprint by 50% in the first few months of imposing the policy. And the other thing we did was we charge now for staff car parking. We have got a car park at the BBC in West London, but now all BBC Worldwide staff that use it, they have to pay £5 a day if they want to bring their car in, and all of that money goes into my environmental account, and I use that to offset any unavoidable emissions. And we buy gold standard offsets to do that. So let me just move on quickly to the other chunk of the business, which is the manufacturing side of it, tell you how we're tackling that. For magazines, we partnered with the Publishers Association, the Magazine Publisher Trade Association, and we developed a carbon footprint tool, which is now being used throughout the UK publishers, so IPC and EMAP and others are using it, and we're also rolling it out now. It's so good that we're rolling it out to be used around the world. And that tool, that did take a bit of development, but having developed the tool, to actually footprint our magazines business took about 1 day, because we're just rattling things through the calculator. And we think that probably in most areas of business, someone has already done most of the work, so it's just a question of gathering together what's been done and putting it together and using that data. We have toys that go onto the front of the magazines and for our licensing business, and to our knowledge no one has actually footprinted toys yet. One of my colleagues today is with a supplier of ours talking about doing the first toy footprint of a toy. We don't know yet what that's going to involve, how complicated it will be, but we're making a start on that. And then we will do the same with our video business, with our DVDs, with our books and so on, so that eventually all of our manufacturing outputs have been footprinted. And we aim to do all of that this year. The way that we're doing that, we're not using champions, we're not using eco-warriors through the company. We've actually, every business area has had to nominate a senior manager, a director from each of the business areas, and it's their responsibility to do this footprinting, and it's feeding into ISO 14001 as one of our objectives under that. So the idea is that by the end of the year, we have got a complete footprint of the whole of BBC Worldwide, and then we very rapidly move on to reducing it. And that for us is the core thing, is reducing it, not just talking about footprints all the time. So that's really all I wanted to say, other than one thing that we have found to be incredibly useful is and I think probably essential, is the full support of the board. So whenever we do an initiative, whether it's banning paper cups or the travel policy or anything like that, actually it goes first of all to the chief exec and then to the executive board, and it has sign-off from them, because then it is supported by them and driven by them. The travel policy is not guidelines, this is policy, and anyone who contravenes any of these things, if anyone in our company flies to Scotland, then once a quarter at the executive board meeting, their name comes up on an exceptions list, and that gets followed up by the kind of procedures that would be used if there was an irregularity in expenses, for example. It's basically breaking company policy. So that's how we manage that. And I said earlier that we went binless. Well, there was someone in one of the magazine areas who decided that no one's going to tell me that I can't have a litter bin under my desk. So they brought one in from home, and it was removed by the floor manager, by the facilities people. So they brought another one in the next day, and the floor manager came to me and said, "What do we do about this? I don't want to get into a conflict situation, but this person keeps bringing their bin in, and we're told that they're not allowed to have bins." Well, quite simply, we just elevated it up to that person's manager and said, "Sort this out." The manager sent them an email saying, "You've got to choose where you want to work. Do you want to work at BBC Worldwide, where this is how we run the business, we're trying to be green, or don't you?" And the next day the bin had gone, and they've been very good ever since. Thank you very much.